Even after the last great pirate fleets disappeared, the black flag continued to haunt every sailor who crossed the Atlantic. Merchant captains remembered that its greatest strength had never been the cloth itself, but the fear it inspired before a single cannon fired. Though the Golden Age of Piracy ended beneath the gallows and the guns of the Royal Navy, the Jolly Roger survived as the ultimate symbol of terror, forever reminding the world that reputation could be deadlier than any broadside.
Enjoy the video and don't forget to subscribe.
Trace your finger along the map from Nassau toward the Windward Passage and picture the year 1718 as the smell of rotting oak, boiling pine tar, damp hemp rigging, stale bilge water, sulfur, and wet salt drifted beneath low storm clouds while snapping canvas echoed through every shroud and stay. Few organizations during the Golden Age of Piracy inspired greater terror than the loose pirate brotherhood that transformed scattered criminals into a maritime force capable of intimidating empires. Although no single king ruled them, experienced captains forged alliances through necessity, profit, and carefully negotiated articles of agreement that distributed plunder according to rank, skill, and wounds suffered in battle. Their preferred vessels included swift sloops displacing between 90 and 120 tons, usually measuring 75 to 85 feet along the keel, with pronounced tumble-home supported by massive white oak futtocks fastened using hand-forged iron spikes nearly 11 inches long. Every seam required twisted oakum driven deep by caulking irons before repeated careening coated the hull beneath boiling pine tar that hardened into a resilient waterproof shell against relentless seawater. Standing rigging of tightly laid hemp nearly 1 inch thick supported lower masts, while deadies, chain plates, and futtock shrouds transferred enormous strain into the hull whenever Atlantic squalls filled heavy canvas. Merchant captains recognized these silhouettes long before identifying individual flags, because disciplined maneuvering often revealed a brotherhood operating together instead of isolated raiders, and that realization alone frequently shattered resistance before the first bronze cannon rolled into battery. The brotherhood relied upon fear as carefully as any naval commander relied upon mathematics. Long before grappling hooks crossed enemy rails, pirate lookouts climbed nearly 70 feet above the deck into swaying tops where they studied the horizon through polished brass spyglasses, while signal flags and lantern codes silently coordinated distant consorts. Letters of marque had once legitimized many experienced officers during wartime, but after peace returned, those same navigators redirected their knowledge toward commerce routes carrying sugar, indigo, tobacco, cocoa, and Spanish silver. Their broadside batteries usually consisted of 10 to 16 bronze carriage guns cast from an alloy averaging approximately 88% copper and 10% tin, with minor traces of zinc and lead, producing remarkable resistance against repeated firing cycles. Every powder charge contained roughly 75% saltpeter, 15% charcoal, and 10% sulfur compressed into coarse grains that ignited with explosive speed once sparks from glowing slow match reached the vent. Expanding gases accelerated iron rounds shot through the bore before smashing into merchant hull planking, where dense oak fibers splintered into thousands of razor-sharp fragments that often killed more sailors than the cannonball itself. The thunderous concussion echoed across open water, while sulfur smoke mixed with drifting salt spray until terrified crews believed entire fleets surrounded them. Even when only 3 pirate sloops hunted together, precise maneuvering created the terrifying illusion of overwhelming numbers, convincing countless merchants that surrender offered their only chance of survival. The true strength of the pirate brotherhood rested not only in violence, but in an organized system of discipline that outsiders rarely understood. Before each voyage, every sailor placed his mark beside carefully written articles of agreement specifying shares of captured cargo, compensation for wounds, acceptable conduct aboard ship, and punishments for theft, cowardice, or concealed plunder. A carpenter who lost a hand repairing shattered futtocks beneath enemy fire might receive several hundred pieces of 8, while a gunner blinded by exploding powder could expect lifelong support from the common treasury. Yet the same code showed no mercy toward betrayal. A sailor caught hiding silver inside his sea chest could be flogged until his back became raw beneath the cat-o'-nine tails, marooned upon an isolated quay with little more than a musket, a powder horn, and a single bottle of water, or executed before the assembled crew to remind every witness that greed threatened the survival of all. Daily life demanded endless labor despite legends of effortless riches. Hemp rigging absorbed moisture and stretched beneath tropical heat, forcing constant adjustment of stays and shrouds. Blocks required fresh tallow to reduce friction, pumps removed seawater leaking through expanding hull planks, and the capstan groaned beneath the combined strength of dozens of exhausted men hauling heavy anchors from depths exceeding 100 feet. Even successful pirates remained trapped inside a floating machine that demanded relentless maintenance, because one neglected seam or fractured mast partner could doom the entire Brotherhood long before the Royal Navy appeared on the horizon. Terror became the Brotherhood's most valuable weapon because reputation traveled faster than any favorable wind. Survivors carried stories from Jamaica to Barbados, from Charleston to Havana, describing black flags rising through morning fog moments before disciplined boarding parties crossed the narrowing gap between hulls. Pirates sharpened boarding axes until their edges could split seasoned oak, inspected flintlock pistols weighing nearly 3 pounds, and carried curved cutlasses forged from high-carbon steel capable of surviving repeated blows against iron guards without shattering. Grappling hooks secured with thick hemp cables crashed onto merchant rails while crews hauled both vessels together until tumble-home pressed against tumble-home with deafening groans from strained futtocks and knees deep inside the hull. Muskets fired at only short range because black powder fouling rapidly coated their bores, yet the dense volley filled confined decks with choking smoke that reduced visibility to only a few feet. Within that gray cloud, experienced pirates relied upon shouted commands, memorized deck layouts, and brutal speed rather than elegant swordsmanship. Captains deliberately allowed several prisoners to escape after major captures, because frightened witnesses spread horrifying accounts across every colonial port, convincing countless merchants to strike their colors without resistance during future encounters. Through calculated brutality rather than endless battles, the Pirate Brotherhood expanded its influence across the Atlantic, forcing wealthy trading companies and imperial governors to confront an enemy whose greatest victories often occurred before the first blade ever left its scabbard. By 1720, the growing power of the Pirate Brotherhood threatened imperial commerce so severely that Britain, France, Spain, and the Dutch Republic increasingly abandoned rivalry in favor of coordinated suppression. Royal governors offered pardons to ordinary pirates willing to surrender, yet dispatched heavily armed frigates against captains who refused. Unlike the swift sloops favored by pirates, naval frigates displaced 400 to 700 tons and carried 28 to 40 guns arranged along reinforced decks, supported by massive oak beams and closely spaced futtocks capable of absorbing repeated recoil. Their disciplined gun crews drilled until each bronze cannon could be loaded with powder cartridge, wad, iron round shot, and priming charge in less than 2 minutes. Marines armed with bayonets guarded quarterdecks while trained officers calculated wind angle, current, and sail balance with mathematical precision unknown aboard most pirate vessels. The Brotherhood attempted to counter this growing pressure through hidden anchorages among mangrove channels, secret careening beaches, and intelligence purchased from corrupt merchants, dock workers, and tavern keepers who reported convoy departures for Spanish silver fleets and English sugar ships. Yet every successful raid increased the determination of imperial authorities. Insurance rates soared across Atlantic ports, merchants demanded stronger escorts, and colonial assemblies financed larger patrol squadrons. The same terror that had once delivered effortless victories slowly united powerful governments whose combined shipyards, financial resources, and naval academies could eventually replace every lost warship faster than the Pirate Brotherhood could recruit experienced sailors. Even before the last pirate strongholds collapsed, the Brotherhood had already begun destroying itself. Greed fractured alliances, Informers sold safe harbors for royal rewards, and once feared captains found that terror alone could never preserve an empire built upon violence. The same sea that had made them legends became the silent witness to their inevitable downfall.